announcements. Second one, so we can get everything figured out. We don't have echo. We good? Okay, we'll go ahead and try it and see how it goes, everybody. Okay, member Babs, alternate today is Daniel McKenna Foster.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, thank you. Member Kohlhaas.
Here.
Member Rudolph.
Here.
Member Coy. Here. Member White.
Here.
Member Boland.
Here.
Member Duber for member Lindemood.
Here.
Member Keegan.
Present.
You. We have member Alimi.
Present.
Okay, thank you. Member Dawad
Present.
and member Umatum. Hey, you have quorum. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. If you see member Umatum join,
I'll make sure to,
and I'll. Yeah, thanks. Could you do the public involvement announcement too, please?
of course, second, all AMATs, welcome to the AMATs Technical Advisory Committee meeting. Public comments are welcome and encouraged with 3 minutes given to each speaker. After the committee discusses each item, members of the public will be invited to comment. Housekeeping items for virtual attendees, please keep your cameras off unless you are speaking. For those attending by phone, please press *6 to mute or unmute yourself. AMATs committee meetings are audio recorded and posted on the AMATs YouTube page. Thank you.
Okay, Aaron. Next item is the approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion for approving the agenda?
Second.
Moved by member Boland, second by member Kohlhaas. Are there any changes needed to the agenda? Go ahead, member White.
I'd like to add an action item, which would be 5D, bringing a letter of support for discretionary grant application for consideration.
Okay, moved by member White, seconded by member Boland to add item 5D, discretionary grant application letter.
Who seconded?
Member Boland.
Thank you.
Are there any discussion on that? Any objections to that amendment? Okay, hearing no objections, that amendment is incorporated into the motion to approve the agenda. Are there any other changes needed to the agenda? Okay, hearing none, are there any opposed to approving the agenda as amended? Okay, hearing none, the agenda as amended is approved. Next is the meeting minutes, previous meeting minutes. We have a motion for approving the May 7th, 2026 meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by member White. We have a second.
Second.
By member Rudolph. Are there any changes that are needed to the minutes? Big sigh of relief over there. It sounds like there aren't any. Are there any objections to approving the minutes? Hearing none, the May 7th, 2026 minutes are approved. Now on to our action items. Item 5A, the AMATS funding program tip admin mod number 7. Is this yours, Aaron?
Yes, and I'd like to note Terry's.
Okay. The record show that member Umatum joined at 4 p.m.
Just a second. So this is my item. So we have before us tip admin mod number 7. So I won't mention if this is the last one we have, since every time I mention that, we have another one. So we have one before you, a few changes. First, we have some changes to HSIP projects. We have a Gamble Street utility pole removal and increased lighting. So it's adding design funding in FY26 for $750,000 with the VRU code. The total project cost is increased by the $750,000. So this was a change that was captured in an admin mod number 5, but when updating amendment 4 to reflect admin mod 5, I missed it. That's why we typically don't like doing amendments and admin mods at the same time, because it's really easy to miss these things. So basically what happened, Amendment 4 was out for public comment. While it was out for public comment, we were making changes on admin mod 5. So admin mod 5 got approved, and then the idea was to incorporate all the changes from admin mod 5 into Amendment 4. But a couple items were missed, and those are before you today. Next item is Gamble and Inger Street overhead signal indication upgrades. So this one was separating out the design funding from the utilities construction funding in FY26 and updating the fund code to be HSIP. Again, this was one that was supposed to be updated as part of that Amendment 4 final approval, and I missed it. And then Tudor Road, Baxter to Patterson Street channelization. This is not one that was missed. This is a new one. There's a small increase, $293,000 is needed for this based on the latest estimate increase from the PS&E, not PM&E. I apologize for that confusion. We have it corrected for the policy committee memo. Next, table 9. And I see the error there for where it says table 8 for the following projects. We'll update that for the agenda as well. There were a couple of changes requested by the Public Transportation Department for the municipality of Anchorage based on their recently approved split letter. And so we have for the preventative maintenance, capital maintenance 5307, there was a $2.75 million increase in FY26. The fleet replacement expansion 5307, there was a $1.954 million increase in FY25. The fleet improvements, not flea improvements, we'll change that as well, or it's already changed. Increase the FY25 funding by $786,000. And then the bus and bus facility program for 5339, there was an increase in the FY25 funding and an FY26 funding for a total of $288,000 increase. So these changes are before you as they meet the threshold for admin mod. Staff's recommendation is to recommend to the policy committee approval. As a reminder, these do not have to go out for public comment. Now, there is one additional change that was brought to staff after we posted it. So I'll try and make sure I get this without confusing anyone too bad. It's for the Gamble overhead signal work. It is just changing it to where we are removing the AC from the fund code. So it will all be HSIP funding. There will be no AC for that particular project. So that is a recommendation that has come forward for DOT. Staff supports that recommendation and asks your support for it today. You can do it either as part of the main motion or as an amendment to the main motion, however you would like, if you are interested. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. Are there any questions or comments from the committee? One question that I have is that the traffic engineering department is looking at a network analyst to support our traffic operations center, traffic management center, which is CMAC project CMQ12. Anyway, it's one that we're just thinking about, and it fits within this. Are there available funds for being able to do that? Is that something that I was thinking about it more for the MTP, but then as we had a quick email this morning, I know it's kind of last minute. You brought up potentially having it be something that could happen with this HIP amendment, admin mod. Is there funds to be able to add some in that?
Yes, so we would add it in as STBG, Surface Transportation Block Grant, not the CMAQ, because the CMAQ wouldn't be eligible for that, but the STBG would be. Just as a cautionary, we typically don't like funding staff positions with TIP funding where we can help it, because it is subject to change at any time by the policy committee. And so just kind of keep that in mind if you're willing to accept the risks, and of course, everybody supports it. I don't see any reason why we wouldn't be able to do that. You'll have to come up with a match for it, however that's done. So just as a reminder there. And we need to make sure that it's below the threshold for amendment versus admin mod. So how much are you looking at doing?
And per year, it would be 170,000 about.
Okay. That would fall definitely below the threshold for admin mod amendment. So it would be an admin mod. So it can be done today if there is interest and support. We also are pretty short on the fiscal year, so getting it obligated in time is risky at this point. We're still waiting for amendment number 4 to be approved, and until that is approved, kind of everything's on hold. And so just keep that in mind, that even if it gets approved today by the TAC and then the policy committee next week, it could take a month or more to get through the final approval, and that puts us at the last, like July, almost August, and we're,
Pushing up the fiscal year already. So maybe it's
we
not.
might not make it. I'll be honest with you, we may not make it at this point. My recommendation would be, if you're able to, wait until the 27 admin mod number 1 and then have the discussion, because there'll be a lot more time, because we're anticipating doing the first one in October, November, October, November, whenever the new program is approved.
That sounds great. Okay. Any other questions or comments from the committee? Are there any comments from the public on this item?
I do have a comment on,
Okay.
on your,
Go ahead if you'd state.
sorry, Mark Eisman, Acreage Area Planner. Riffing off of what Aaron was saying about adding the funding for your position for this fiscal year, since the fiscal year is almost over, you probably wouldn't need the full 120,000, because that program is going to end, right? And then we'll start a new program. Probably have the TOR in place for the traffic control signalization by March of next year. So just, if that makes sense.
Yep. Sure. Thank you, Mark. Other comments from the public? Okay.
And online.
Are there, what is the will of the committee?
I'll move to recommend to the policy committee approval of the 2023 to 2026 funding program, known as the TIP Administrative Modification Number 7, inclusions of some of the edits that Mr. Young and Ellen mentioned.
Second.
Is that the AC, removing the AC fund code? Is that?
Removing the AC fund code, showing it as STPG. Or no,
It'll just be HSIP.
HSIP.
Yeah, just removing, all we're gonna do is just take out the AC portion of it and then update the match requirement as well for it. To remove the AC.
Okay, so moved by member Koha, seconded by member Keegan. Did that cover everything that you presented?
Yes.
Is there any discussion or amendments? No, we'll wait on ours. I was thinking of it really more for the MTP. Are hearing no additional discussion or items, are there any objections to approving the motion? Hearing no objections, that motion is approved. And we'll move on then to item 5B, the AMATS Transportation Plan, or MTP 2052. I'm assuming that's Rhiannon?
Yep.
Okay, go for it.
Thank you. It's Rhiannon Brown. I'm a senior planner with AMATS. And before you, I have the draft project list for the 2052 MTP, as well as the fiscal assumptions. To give some background, we are doing a minor update at this time. So with that minor update, the project lists were developed by pulling over approved projects from streets and non-motorized time from 2050, pulling in all that were still relevant. We've also added projects based on the work session that we had on May 18th with both committees. And then we also have the transit and rail project list that were provided by those agencies. So before you, within the memo, we have draft project lists. Within it, I think there was a little bit of confusion. So the headers are leading to a little bit of potential confusion. So the short term is considered the TIP years. That's 26 through 30. Midterm is actually what we refer to short term and the remaining revenue, and those are gonna be updated for the policy committee to smooth that out across the board. So on the front of this, you have the project costs for the drug project list. And then on the back side, we have the remaining revenue. This is similar to what you saw during the work session, providing information on who has what funding available left. And again, here it's calling it budget, but I've updated it to say revenue for the policy committee to be consistent. Appreciate that. Appreciate that. So we have our project list. Those were, like I said, put together jointly by the entities and pulled forward for determining the year of expenditure for these projects. In the list, they are listed under 2026 in 2026 dollars. And then we apply inflation to the projects. So in that short-term period up to past the tip from 2030 to 41, a 4.5% inflation is applied to the projects. And then after that, for the long term, it's 3.5%. For the revenue, we got those numbers based on historic information. Again, information provided by the agencies themselves. And for those revenues, we use a 2.4% inflation for those. So inflation is applied, revenue inflation is applied, and then that amount is taken from the projects for that year, and then the remaining funding is pulled into the next year. So what you have on the back, the remaining revenue, is what we have based on these draft projects in front of you. With that being said, after we posted the draft project list, we discovered a few projects that were duplicated and also did not make the list. So I do have a few updates just to verbally go through with you all. So 4 of the projects are based on the Pell. I thought that we had already reviewed, but we had missed them. So starting with Complete Streets, we need to include the 16th Avenue extension as well as the Port of Alaska freight study. Together, it's about $11.5 million. And with that change, the DOT would now have 138 million in the short term. So those are the only 2 changes from the Complete Streets side of things. For the non-motorized side, we have the Hyder project in here, but ours is from 15th to 5th. And the Pell has additional boundaries. They have a south project that's Chester Creek to 15th, and then a north project that's 9th to Ship Creek. So we do need to include those, which are about 30 million, which would mean we need to move 30 million out of the long term and out of the short. So 30 million from the short term into the long term and out of the long term to not program. I hope that makes sense. So to do that for the non-motorized, we are simply taking the lowest scoring projects in each list. So line 57 through 90 would be moving from short term to long term. And then 57 to 90 will be moving to long term. And then 97 to 114 will move from long term to not programmed. So again, that will free up the 30 million that's needed for these 2 Hyder 2B and 2C from the project.
If it's on the it's on the non-motorized list.
Yes, the non-motorized list for those. Additionally, 2 projects were duplicated. They were in the Complete Streets as well as the non-motorized projects, and those are the Muldoon and the Downtown Transit Centers. So those are being removed from the non-motorized. They'll be kept in the Complete Streets, and those are captured within the tip year, so it doesn't adjust funding in any way on this sheet, though. I can answer any questions about those movements. I know there are additional changes that need to be made from information that was passed after, or given to me after these were posted. So I'm happy to answer any questions, provide any information, but ultimately, the floor is open for discussion. Thank you. Oh, sorry, my ask. So we're asking the Technical Advisory Committee to review the project lists and the fiscal assumptions and recommend approval to the Policy Committee. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jen. So which projects did you say moved from long-term to?
Did not program. That's gonna be lines 97 through 114 of the non-mobilized.
And then the ones that go to the long-term are
Line 57 through 90. So it's capturing 30 million essentially term and shifting it downwards.
so some of those in that list were already long-term. It's just taking all the short-term ones from there. If I show the timeline. For example, 84 says long-term. 71 and 72 already said long-term.
You are correct. You are correct. This is a beast. Sure.
You mean, the Excel lines or for the actual lines on the tables that?
The actual lines in the table, they should have been. So yes, that is another.
Yeah.
Yes, there are some short term in there. They should majorly be.
Sixty-eight's a pretty major 10 million that says long-term. The number.
Right, okay. Okay, so essentially, yes, you were, sorry, yeah. I misstepped. So we will be just needing to move 30 million. And I will be pulling the lowest scoring projects, and can provide that updated information. So,
Is that going to be the best, is that by the policy committee, you provide a list of what those are so that,
okay, yeah, I will definitely have the correct list for them, but if you all want to see that before then,
I can do that right now if you want.
Okay.
So
okay.
I'm assisting because it's a lot.
It's
gotta-
a lot.
So I can go through each of the items. So taking 30 million, roughly, it's actually 30.8 million. Out of the short-term projects, starting with the lowest scoring ones. So I'll start at the very top, starting on line 57. It's 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 69, 70, 73, 74, 75, 76, 79, 80, 81, 83, 87, and 90.
those are pretty much all the ones between 57 that say short-term.
Correct. Yes.
But
But I
I
wanted to make sure we get the exact number, so if everybody's looking at them, they know which ones we're talking about.
Are there any other questions or comments from?
There are some transit projects that we need removed from the list because they're duplicated as well. When we go to make a motion, you can either amend it, or we can add it, but transit projects 13 through 17 need to be removed.
Any other questions or comments from the committee?
Mr. Chair, I have a couple proposed changes that I'd like to present. Let's see, on Lake Otis, line item number 144, that is the 20th Avenue channelization. I would like to propose to either redirect those funds or move it to the larger project, line item number 145 called Lake Otis Bar to Northern Lights Boulevard. 144. And
145.
oh, excuse me, 145. But my larger consideration that I'd like to present is changing that project to a road diet instead of increasing capacity. And I have a rough order scope of work, cost, not scope of work, but a rough order cost of 30 million. It's shown as something like 18 million now. So if we were to move the 3 million from 144 to 145, that'll get us to 121. If we're needing to be constrained, you know, my other idea is to remove the 42nd Avenue project, which is a local roadway and not necessarily considered regionally significant to be within the MTP.
What's the project number for that one?
That one's number 130. And that has, I think, around 6 million. So I'm trying to get it closer, but the bigger ask is to consider the scope change of instead of increasing capacity and changing it to a road diet. So that is my asks. And then
So that's finding 144 and 145, changing the cost script. Increasing 39. Does, do we need to have a project description written up?
We have some stuff.
Yeah, before you move forward with that. So for 144, that's MOA funded and 145 is AMATS funded. So you can't, we aren't able to shift it, but we could put the 42nd into the project since both of the.
And MOA funded.
Yeah, you could take this,
different color money.
yeah, you could take the 42nd, the 6.6 and put it into it.
Into 145.
Yeah, 145 is AMATS funding. So if you're gonna shift things around, you have to focus on just the
I
AMATS,
see.
the
Yeah.
ones with the AMATS tag next to it.
Alright.
So right now, we are actually over in the short term, but under in the long term. So adding another 12-ish million to a project, we don't have the capacity to do that unless we remove something else that's AMATS funded in the short term. Most of the projects in the short term are projects that are in the tip right now that we've committed to, or in the 27 through 30 that we've committed to. I don't think we have any problem with changing it to a road diet, but we would just need to know if there are other projects that you guys are okay with moving out in order to do that increase.
Well, specifically the Lake Otis Parkway at 20th Avenue channelization, because that would be work scope that would get rolled into a corridor project.
Yeah, so that's fine. We can remove that. That's just AMATS funding, or that's Muni funding. So it freed up for you guys, but it wouldn't free it up for the 145.
I think the other thing to just note is, you know, even though we're looking at a different, you know, an updated estimate of 30 million, whether that is more accurate than 18 million, it's really not changing the project so much because we're not expanding. We're actually looking to use what we have in that corridor and work from site in. So I don't know if 18 million might be a good enough number for now until we have more clarity and maybe in the future we can refine that number. So maybe I will retract my ask of changing the cost at this time and present the idea of a change in scope.
I think that'd be fine.
Okay.
Just changing it from increased capacity to
road diet.
road diet, whatever we wanna, I don't know what our terminology is
No.
these days, so. Road diet, yes. And then also make sure that the 20th of it already talks about, let's see, hold on. Start to left turn from Lagodas onto 20th as it turns in. We would, we might want to update the description to also include improvements at the 20th Avenue intersection to cover that 20th Avenue channelization. So,
Right, like,
Yeah.
the second sentence,
well, it's a left turn lane. Is that enough?
I think it's the same intersection.
Okay, well,
Still.
yeah,
It wouldn't hurt, right, to put in including intersection
yeah,
work?
we
Oh,
could
just
put
to-
in there, just
Sure.
include intersection work at 20th Avenue.
Oh,
And then we can get rid of the 144 and that's covered by that in
Yes.
there. Okay.
So remove 140.
That was one ask, and then my next one is focused on the corridor study on 36th Avenue, so line item 137. And it's just to be consistent on the termini between the corridor study and then the project that's also associated in the future on line item 125, just 36th Avenue, Spinard to Lake Oaks Parkway. The corridor study limits only go from Spinard to Denali, and my requested change is to change Denali to Lake Oaks Parkway. Pair with the other corridor project, the Complete Street project. Making the limits consistent.
And that one is AMATS funded, and Aaron and I discussed removing projects on line 23 and 24 to free up that money, since there are, I believe, complete street efforts on those roads already.
So an opportunity could be to, lines 23 and 24 of Fifth Avenue signals and lightings. Since we already have a complete street project for portions of Fifth and Sixth Avenue in the plan, it might be an opportunity to either reduce those a little or move them out entirely.
So,
So just something to think about.
so 137 is only 250,000 study. But
Yeah.
take out 20 million.
Well, that could be for the lake, not the study. The study could be covered by just a couple $100,000 piece for the termini change. That wouldn't be a problem.
Oh, for the Lake Otis Parkway one?
Yeah, if there's a desire to increase the cost of the Lake Otis Parkway, that might be an opportunity to look at some projects that are existing in there that can be moved out.
A little money to each of those.
But if there's a desire, the other one you mentioned was the Spinard to Lake Otis for the corridor study on 36th Avenue, right? Making sure I don't. Updating the termini is not a problem. It's pretty easy to do, and we just have to add maybe 250,000 more to it to get that extra little bit, and that's easily accommodated in the program.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Linda. Other questions or comments from the committee?
I have some changes to the railroad list. I don't know. Line 2, the preventative maintenance 5307. Like to zero that out. Line 6, bridge rehabilitation 5307. Change that to 3,750,000. Line 10, preventative maintenance 5337. 499,208. Line 11, bridge rehab 5337. Change that to 1,550,000. And then lines 14 and 15, the facility rehab, and the railroad technology infrastructure, both of those would be zeroed out. That's just truing up to.
There are questions and comments from the committee? The one that I'll mention is line item 54 on the complete streets. Is where it has the traffic control signalization. 54, 55, and then 56 as well. That's where adding in additional funding. Or these are covering two positions right now, so it'd be a third position, so.
How much 175K a month a year?
Yeah, I'm thinking about that. I think it's basically increasing them by 50%. Two positions they're covering now, so it'd be a third position. Is about what it would be.
Okay, we'll have to calculate how much that is overall and see if we need to make any adjustments to moving a project in or out to cover that increase. Since we capture, what's in the current tip, short term and then long term, it's gonna be amount of money. We'll just have to figure out what it is.
Other questions and comments from the committee? Okay, are there any public comments? Seeing no public comments, what is the will of the committee? And we could incorporate in these in the motion, or we could make the motion and amend it in, which is probably a little simpler, but.
We're gonna have quite a few amendments on this one. I think we just start off with a basic one.
Sounds good.
And just so you know, you can group like the railroad changes or the transit changes. You can the railroad can all be one amendment. The transit can all be one amendment. You don't have to do an amendment for each change that you want to do, just as a reminder. So we don't have to have 25 amendments by the time we're done.
Well, we could set a record to.
Yeah. Oh, I guess.
Fingers will be flying.
Sounds good.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to recommend approval to the policy committee of the 2052 MTP
On fiscal assumption.
and fiscal assumptions.
Project lists. CTP itself.
Okay.
Let me try it again.
Yeah, there you go. All right, recommend approval to the policy committee of the fiscally constrained project list and the fiscal assumptions for the 2052 MTP.
Okay, we have a motion by member Bullen. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by member Kohlhaas. Let's start with some of the amendments that I know we have. Who would like to propose an amendment? Want to give it a start?
I'll
Mark?
start. I propose an amendment to remove projects 13 through 17 on the transit tape.
We have a second.
Second.
Motion by member Rudolph, second by member Kohlhaas to remove transit project 1317. Any discussion on that? Are there any opposed to that amendment? Okay, hearing none, that amendment is incorporated into the motion. Maybe let's go the railroad. You've got simpler ones too as well.
Yeah, do you need me to list through them again, or can I just say as discussed?
What we've normally done in the past is as discussed. Is that okay? Okay. We got the approval that that's okay. Since we talked about it earlier, we can just say as discussed earlier.
Move to update the railroad capital project list as discussed.
Okay, we have a motion for amendment by member Duber, seconded by member White. Any additional conversation or discussion about that? Okay, is there any opposed to making that amendment? Okay, hearing none, that amendment is incorporated as well. Transit and rail. You've got a few, Melinda.
Okay, sure. I move to amend to include, let's see. Start. Should I just say to amend as discussed, or should I actually?
I think yours is a little bit more.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, I think because we weren't sure exactly what we.
Easy button.
Sorry, I can repeat what was discussed if you need.
Let me.
Okay.
Here, okay, move to amend for PM&E, well, not necessarily PM&E projects. So to remove line item 144. As much of the work is already, can be incorporated in project identified as line item 145. And to change the scope of project line item 145, Lake Otis Parkway, Complete Street Projects, DeBar to Northern Lights Boulevard, to change the scope from increasing capacity to a road diet. Next, I also want to, within that amendment, make a termini change on line item 137 to change 36th Avenue corridor study Spinard to Lake Otis Parkway instead of Denali. That's complete.
They're all on the same page, so that makes it a little easier to see. Okay, we have a motion by member Kohlhaas. We have a second. Okay, second by member White. Beat you to it. Are there any discussion on that?
Did you want to change the scope of 144 to include intersection improvements at 20th Avenue?
I do.
Okay.
Yes.
145, you mean?
145, sorry.
145.
Yes, to
Yes.
cover the 144 that's being removed.
Yes, please. Thank you for the reminder.
Are you good with that? With the friendly amendment? Okay. So. As far as like language and exactly how that scope wording, that's something that staff can.
Yeah, we'll keep it really basic. Just say include intersection improvements at 20th Avenue. And what we can do is in the MTP is if it's approved by the policy committee, we would remove 144, but we can keep a note in there about, you know, this was to cover, this language change was to cover this particular project, and we can keep that info there. So we don't lose that information that was provided to us by the public. So when it comes time to do the project, we can provide it to the project team and say, this was originally envisioned. What can you do to incorporate this into the scope of this new project?
So with those changes that you mentioned, do you also want the costs changed at all?
Not at this time.
So leave the 250,000 for the 36th Avenue project. And it can get considered later. Does that have any complications if it's, I mean, should we just double it at this point? Because that's probably.
It would probably be good because we're adding term 9 to it, so it does change the cost of that project a little. What the final amount's going to come out to, we'll update it when we get to the tip, but we know it's going to be an increase. So, I mean, you could even do $100,000 and it would cover it, unless anybody's like, oh, it'll be more than that. But you could just ask for $100,000 increase and we'll cover that in the program. That's
Let's ask for a
rounding.
100,000 increase. I also noticed there was one other change on that corridor study. I'd like to change, let's see, to short term. I think it's identified as long term. I'd like
36th
to
Avenue,
change that as short term if possible.
36th Avenue corridor study.
The 36th Avenue corridor study.
What's the project number for the actual project itself? 120?
Maybe it was 021.
But it's line item 137.
Yes. 137.
Yes.
What was it for the actual 30? Because you said it was to match up with the 36th Avenue project.
Which is the line item 125.
Thank you, 125. Because I just want to see what that 125 is in long term. Okay,
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that we weren't actually having that project in short term. and
Exactly.
we're studying long term.
I know why I was looking at,
So-
it was actually flipped, so.
Okay.
we need to make that correction.
Do you see any reason why we couldn't move the quarter study into short term?
No. No,
Because we do it in short term and then the long term would be the actual project
Yeah.
itself. Okay.
Okay, Ben, are you okay with those changes that funding increases by 100,000 to 380,000? And the timeline changed to short term?
Yep.
Okay, so that funding amendment is incorporated into your motion.
Right.
Any other discussion on the amendment?
Can I just clarify? So the first amendment was to the transit list and the second amendment was to the railroad. Is it just clear in the notes, this one was to the complete streets project list?
It's a good idea. We could just clarify that this particular amendment is, we're talking about the complete streets project list. So if somebody's like, line 144 doesn't exist on XY. So we were talking about the complete streets list. Thank you.
Good clarity. Okay, other discussion? Go ahead, Luke.
And one, another very friendly amendment, consideration there on line 145. In terms of how the change in language is read, maybe deleting increased capacity from the scope of work, but not saying specifically road diet, maybe say evaluate lane reduction and lane reconfiguration as something, just kind of just in general, how scope language usually works in case we're
Like,
into any
general
engineering.
design.
Yeah.
Yes, I will accept that from the amendment.
Are you okay with that, Ben, too?
Yep.
I think it was noted in the chat, but I think the terminology is right of way reallocation.
Okay,
We could use that as a more generic term if you guys want to evaluate right of way relocation.
the allocation. That sounds fine,
Yep.
like it.
I was like. I
That was
thinking of what
my
that term was.
reallocation, that was my interest, not increasing capacity.
Okay, so change it not to say road diet, but to say right of way reallocation.
Sure.
By friendly amendment to the motion for the amendment. Other discussion on the amendment? Okay, are there any opposed to the amendment? Okay, hearing none, that amendment is incorporated into the motion. Again, that's on the Complete Streets project list, page 13. Items 137, 144, and 145. Okay. Are there any other amendments?
Yeah, we had some changes for what we talked about for the Pell project.
That's right.
2 complete streets and 2 non-motorized that need to be included.
Right, so I would entertain a motion that the 16th Avenue extension, you said, and then the port.
The port freight study need to go into study streets.
Port freight study.
So moved. Can I do that? Can I hit the easy button like that?
Yep.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
So moved by member Boland, seconded by member Duber to incorporate the 16th Avenue extension and port freight study into the Complete Streets project list. Do you need more details on that, or is that sufficient? Okay, any discussion on those? Are there any opposed to that amendment? Okay, hearing none, those 2 projects are added to the Complete Streets project, to our motion anyway. And then the other motion I would entertain then is the draft non-motorized project list to include 2 additions to the Hyder Street Greenway, Wester Creek to 15th Avenue, and from 5th Avenue to Ship Creek Trail. Did I get those right? With the details on the projects provided by the Pell. There. Anybody like to make that amendment?
So moved, so moved.
Okay. So Member White, do we have
I
a
love
second?
that.
Who moved it?
Member White,
Yeah, thank you.
and do we have a second? I guess Member Bullen said he moved too.
I'll second it. since
Okay.
I also tried to say something, but I didn't get there fast enough.
Okay, Member Bullen, any more discussion on this?
Can you reiterate it? So the reason is the PEL termini is different than what we have for the project right now. So do you want us to update everything to be consistent with what the PEL has? The reason I ask, our Hyder Street project goes from 15th to 5th. The PEL has it 15th to 9th. If we update it in the MTP, we're also gonna have to update it in the tip. So I just want to make sure everybody's clear that it's fine. We'll just need to note it as staff that we'll have to update it with the next amendment for the 27 through 30 tip.
It's the longer termini. Are we able to start a portion of it with MGP as, I mean, I'm sure that's not ideal, but
I mean,
that the more conservative.
from a technical standpoint, your terminis need to match between your MTP and your tip. So
I mean, I guess the question is this extending the current Hyder pedestrian boulevard from Fifth or from Ship Creek all the way to Chester Creek, the full thing, or is it adding like stages of the project where you've got from Ship Creek to 15 or Chester Creek, I mean to 15th, and then 5th to Ship Creek, and maybe a 9th to 5th begins to have like 4 different portions, and then you've got alignment with the 15th to 9th with these other ones. Do you have thoughts on? Is it just more complex?
I mean, it's hugely complex, but it's similar to what you guys do with roadway projects, I think, where you do kind of like a large termini, like on the Seward Highway, and then you chunk it into phases.
I mean, honestly, looking at
Yeah.
how that part of our network works, the 15th to 9th is the simplest. When you go from 9th to 5th, you've got some major street crossings that probably are looking at a different sort of signals or some other treatments. So it is of a different nature. And when you go from 5th to Ship Creek, again, that's like its own project for sure with the amount that you have. And I guess south of 15th is its own kind of projects too. So I could see them being all separate.
I would recommend separate because it makes it clear for the public what's gonna happen. It makes it clearer for us. We can adjust it later if there's an issue. We have time, so it's okay, but I would recommend we separate it out into those 4 that you list and update the cost estimate, and then also have it to where we move out the projects that we listed earlier to make room for that.
So that would also then mean the Hyder pedestrian boulevard on our tip, which is items 14 and 15, non-motorized list, would get adjusted from 15th to 9th so that it aligns with the tip. Then we'd have a 9th to 5th, a 5th to Ship Creek, and a Chester Creek to 15th. That's 3 other separate projects. I guess
I'm okay with that.
you're okay with that? Motions? Okay. So that friendly amendment was adopted by members White and Boland, who were the motion and the amendment and the friendly, and the second to the amendment.
So it'll be 4 projects. Let me just reiterate. So it'll be the 15th to Chester is the southern portion. Then there'll be the 15th to 9th, which is what
In the tip.
we'll have to update the tip to reflect that. And then there'll be 9th to 5th, and then 5th to Ship Creek. Okay, those are the 4 projects we'll add in there.
And weren't you saying the tip already has it?
Yes, it does. And we'll have to just update, we'll have to get it with the next amendment. So we'll just need to make sure if the policy committee approves it, once the MTP is approved, then we can go ahead and update the tip.
Does the tip need to be updated, or does it already have the 9th to?
The tip is the 15th to 5th, but you're gonna do that as a separate project. And we typically specifically call out projects in the tip based on their termini. So if we update it to 15th to 9th in the B, we'll have to update the one in the tip. What we can do is separate it out into 2 projects in the tip, so you can still keep them in there. We'll just need to update it into the termini. So we got it.
you mind pointing me to where that is in the tip just real quick?
It'll be in the non-motorized table. It's on the 27 through 30 tip. Is that the one you're looking at? Okay. That one has not been approved by WA at this point, so we're still waiting. So we can't make any changes until that's done. And then once we get our amendment process going, we'll update the Hyder project if this is approved.
Any more discussion on that amendment? I guess the question is if the tip does have 15th to 5th, I mean, that could all be done as one. So rather than have to go amend it, I was thinking you were saying it was through 9th to 15th is what I thought that you had said what was in the tip.
No, what's in the tip is 15th to 5th.
Okay, so do we want to just have that be the one project so it becomes 3 instead of 4?
Well, I mean, you were just talking about the fact that the 9th to 5th portion is gonna be much more complicated.
It will be a little bit more complicated.
So it may make it easier to get something quick, have it be the 15th to 9th, get it done, and then have a little bit more time on the 9th to 5th.
We could look at, as we design, grouping all 4 of them together, so there's consistency with the design team, so we're not,
Okay.
there's some efficiencies there, and it's just how we stage it.
Okay. Sounds good. So any more discussion on that item? Are there any opposed to approving that amendment? Hearing none, that amendment is approved, is incorporated into the motion for the Hyder project on the non-motorized plan, or non-motorized table. Do we have any other amendments?
The two transit, the downtown and Muldoon transit that are duplicated, or did we already cover that? No, those need to be removed from the non-motorized.
So move.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, moved by member Bowen.
Uh-oh.
By member Rudolph.
Oh, no.
Which numbers are those?
Those are 25 and 26 on the non-motorized list, lines 25 and 26.
Okay, and those are duplicates, so they just need to be removed.
Yes.
Okay.
Who, it was Boland and then Ben's seconded.
And Rudolph.
Rudolph second. Okay.
Do we have any discussion on those?
Those are some big dollar amounts there. Does that mess with the fiscal constraint there for the non-motorized?
It doesn't.
Okay.
Because they were part of our tip years. So our tip years are kind of its own self-contained bubble. So,
So duplicate, but we weren't double counting the numbers.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Okay, are any opposed to that amendment? Okay, that amendment is approved and incorporated in. I guess the other one that I would entertain is to the complete streets list, adjust the traffic control signalization, which is 54, 55, 56. To increase by 50%. Each of those 3 items. Which would allow, instead of 2 positions, a third. That would support work in that traffic management. Anyone willing to make that motion for me?
So moved.
Okay, thanks, member Frost. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, second by member Rudolph. Any discussion on that?
Was the percentage increase to, it was 54, 50?
it's 175K per year. So we'll figure out what the total amounts are and we'll figure out whether that pushes us over our fiscal analysis or not. So just heads up, if it causes us to have to get a lot of money from somewhere, we'll have to point it out to the policy committee and see what they want to do.
But that's total. It would just be the one set.
What we would do is basically go in there and say, okay, 54, I think is the current one in the tip, in maybe the 23 through 26. Sorry, I don't have it in front of me.
Oh, gotcha.
And we'd have to figure out per year, so it's times 4 years, So however much that is, and then we have to do the next one for the short term, figure out how much it is for that entire period from 2031 to 2041. And then do the same thing for 2042 to 2052, see how much those total are, see if it's above and beyond what we could absorb in the program. I suspect it is,
Yeah,
and so we'll have to have a discussion about it. I just don't know how much it is.
that's for those signals, those fifth and sixth signalization projects, right?
Yeah, there could be some flexibility with the scopes of those projects, and some of it will be covered under others, and see if we can adjust it a little and free up some funding. So we'll take a look at it as staff, and we can bring a recommendation to the policy committee forward on how to fund it.
That's good. Any other discussion on that?
Who seconded?
Member Riddle,
Thank you.
moves to that motion? Amendment? Okay, hearing none, that amendment is also incorporated in the motion. Are there any other amendments? Go ahead, Member White.
So unfortunately, I don't have it with me, but we've been starting to go down the discussion of the fiscal analysis for Safer Seward. And this was a project that was in the MTP. At one point had been pulled out of the MTP. And so we're working with the project team to try and break down the financial fiscal picture of this. This project's going to require a fiscal plan that Federal Highways is going to have to approve. So I'm going to try and I was hoping to get this to you guys before the meeting, but it's been very hectic the last few days. So the intent is to try and get this back to you all. I anticipate that if it doesn't come up here, it would be definitely coming up at policy that this project gets added back into the MTP. So I'm not sure exactly how to do this, but because we don't have the fiscal analysis right now to give to you guys. But at some point it's gotta be, we need to have that conversation. So I'm gonna try and get it to you here as soon as I can, so it's ready for discussion at policy, but I didn't want to just bypass this group and all of you without bringing that up and having that conversation, at least as a group. So. And then I don't know if we got everything to you, if you're comfortable with everything from the sewer to Glen Pell, Brandon.
Yes. Yes.
I know there was a little bit of confusion as to what was provided in the chat versus what.
Yeah, that was, my brain melded things that didn't need.
I was just making sure you got everything from us on the sewer to Glen Pell.
I do, thank you.
I'm gonna work on trying to get you guys the fiscal analysis on Safer Seward. I don't know what kind of amendment we're adding to this, but it's, on record.
Can I try?
Yeah.
All right. Move to add a placeholder line item in the MTP Complete Streets projects list to cover suite of projects for the Safer Seward project. Information to follow in advance of distribution of the policy committee agenda with details on fiscal constraint.
Okay, motion been made by Member Bullen. Do we have a second?
Right, so, sorry. We are posting that information today since the meeting is next week. So right after this,
So if I have it written down on this note sheet right here, get that. Okay.
But will not be ready in time to be posted as part of the agenda for the policy committee.
So maybe adjust my amendment there to say as much advance notice as possible to get distributed to the policy committee.
Yeah, they're meeting next week, so
Uh,
a lot of time.
I'll second.
Okay,
For
motion seconded by Member White. I guess do you guys have jotted down what that motion, what the amendment was?
Got a placeholder for Complete Streets project list to cover the Safer Seward suite of projects. And then to be provided in advance of the policy committee meeting as much as possible, information about the fiscal analysis.
Any discussion on that? amendment, a member.
Kind of us for BAM. I guess two questions. The one is there any idea how much that project has cost so far? Is there any clarification if any of that getting is participatory or not? And then I guess to add something back in, was that project did already go through criteria and was already vetted and that sort of thing? I guess those are my three.
I guess in terms of adding it to the MTP, I don't know if the participation on what's been spent to date is necessarily relevant for our design funds that have been obligated here. It was in the MTP at one point in time. In terms of, sorry, what was the other?
The first one was, is there any idea, because we were talking about the fiscal analysis, just how much has been spent on that so far? The second one was, did that ever get resolved if that was going to be refunded? Financial obligation. And then the third is, what were the criteria for putting it in or removing it? Or because I don't know what the process is for a project gets removed from the MTP and then gets put back in. Like, I'm assuming that it got added in because it met a certain number of criteria. It got removed because maybe it didn't meet those or something like that. So there's just an update there.
I don't believe there's any criteria that was, well, go ahead, Aaron, if you'd like to.
Yes, projects are typically scored when they're added back into the MTP. So at the request of this group and the policy committee at the work session, we scored and ranked the Safer Seward Highway project. It scored a 1 out of 120 possible points. It's one of the lowest scoring projects we have available. So that combined with the unknown about the fiscal assumptions and how it's going to be paid for, and the fact that FHWA is requiring us to include the entire project in our MTP, whereas in the past, we only included the portion within the MPO boundary. That is no longer allowed and no longer the case. We had a little bit of an error there and we got corrected. From a technical standpoint, as staff, there's some serious concerns about the fiscal assumptions for that project, the viability of that project. Doesn't meet any of our goals and objectives, clearly by the scoring. So just going to raise it and then I'll let it go because I don't think it is a viable project for us to be including in our MTP just based on that alone. So, thank you.
I was just gonna say, because we don't know the implications of adding that project, because we don't have the cost, which projects would fall out, how many, it sounds like quite a few would have to fall out. I don't think I can't take action on that at this committee. I think if it's the intent of DOT to just go to the policy committee, they should just do that. But I think I can't make an informed decision here, so I would vote against the motion because of that.
I appreciate that comment. I think, and that's the detail we need to provide, right? Is
Yeah.
with a project of this magnitude, I mean, 20 miles of highway right next to the inlet, right next to a rock face. It's not a cheap project. This is something that we'd be looking at funding over decades so that we're not impacting the rest of the program. I think everybody gets a little hung up on the overall dollar amount, which is why I say that we'd be looking at a suite of projects here so that we can show how we deliver incremental improvements along the Seward Highway. And I think we all agree that there can be improvements to the Seward Highway south of Anchorage. So I think that's the detail that we owe, the group to get this back into the MTP.
Yeah, and I think even before it was taken out of the MTP, those were some of the asks. Or to understand how is it going to be funded so that it didn't the fiscal reality of Alaska and Anchorage. Other discussion from the committee?
What is the opportunity for another amendment if our goal is to get it wrapped up by the end of this year? Or time?
No, I mean, because schedule wise, our plan is, depending on what the policy committee does, we need to get this ready, wrapped up in July to get it out back to you all for August release for September public comment period, September, October public comment period. We have to do 45 days and then bring it back in December for final approval.
So this is the opportunity right now to have it in the MTP, and otherwise it's like an amendment process.
Yep.
In future years.
Yeah, you could do an amendment after the MTP is approved. You could do an amendment starting in, say, we get it approved in December. You could start an amendment in January to amend the MTP to add the project in once the fiscal information is say we don't get the fiscal, I don't know what it is. Say we don't get the fiscal information now. January can be the next amendment for the MTP, if that's what you're asking. So
Yes.
Other discussion on the amendment?
I'll just note that, planning board, we have a series of advisory commissions and they give us, occasionally items go to them and they provide feedback. The Historic Preservation Commission did look into that project and I think they had some concerns about the Section 106 process. And I don't know the details because I don't follow very closely, but their letter is posted. I think they responded, but they raised some concerns about 106. So I don't know if that relates to this or if it could go in or not, but it does seem like it would not be nice. They seem to be asking some questions about getting those. It's just from my perspective, it's kind of unclear where that stands without, kind of like Mr. Rudolph pointed out, the fiscal piece and some concerns about whether the Section 106 consultation went through as it's supposed to. So just a lot of gray there. From my perspective.
I am aware we did receive that letter on the 106, and that's being evaluated as part of the NEPA process. So I think that's well in line with project delivery, and we'll take all those concerns very seriously as we. Environmental ones.
That's good. Other discussion on, from the committee on this item? So it sounds like we are in a challenge for this one. Should we do a voice call for voting on this motion, this amendment?
Roll call.
Roll call. That's probably in order for this.
it was a voiced objection, so, or possible, so we would want to do that.
Do you mind managing that for
Not at all.
us?
Okay, we'll go ahead and start. Member Dawad. On the amendment to add a placeholder to the Complete Streets project list for the suite of Safer Seward Highway projects, and then getting the fiscal analysis in advance of the policy committee meeting as much as possible. How do you vote?
Yes.
Member Leamy?
No.
Okay, member Umatum?
Yes.
Okay, member Duber?
Yes.
Okay, member Boland?
Yes.
Okay, member Keegan?
Yes.
Okay, member White?
Yes.
Member Coy?
No.
Member Colhouse?
No.
Member Rudolph?
No.
Sorry, I'm just typing your guys' names as I'm doing it. Member Daniel McKenna Foster for the member Bab?
No.
Okay. 6-5. Is that what it is? Okay, it passes. Thank you.
Do we have any other amendments?
Okay, one more.
Okay, go for it.
Sorry, marathon here. On the Complete Streets, well, I guess I'll just make the motion. Yeah, so move to amend Complete Streets project list item 89 to increase the fiscal constraint from 32 million to 80 million. Speak a little bit on this. So this is the old Seward Highway O'Malley to Diamond project. Been doing a lot of stakeholder engagement, looking at fiscal constraint there within the 32 million that's been in the UTP. I know there has been some interest in one of the mini versions of the 92nd undercross in there, and I understand that adding the additional funding there would allow us to pursue that further as we go into more public involvement on this project. So wanted to open that up for discussion, and also helps with the available funds there for DOT projects, both short term and.
You say 32 million to 89 million? 80 million, sorry. Thank you. That's number 89.
Okay, we have a motion, do you have a second?
Second.
Okay, a motion by member Boland, seconded by member White. Just project 89 to 80 million. Any discussion on that item? Are there any opposed to that amendment being incorporated in? Okay, hearing none, that amendment is incorporated in. And I'm remembering that, I don't know if we've made the motion yet to move projects to make space for the Pell. So that's the short-term ones that you listed, Aaron, moving those to long-term.
We did that as part of the motion for a previous motion where we talked about making the changes for the non-motorized ones, where we listed out the 4. Is that the one you're talking about, or on the complete streets list?
Oh, okay, so we're on the Hyder Street. When we,
The Hyder Street, we did that as part of that motion.
we included moving all the short-term to long-term.
Wait, I think you all are talking about two different, you're talking about Hyder, but you're talking about freeing up the 30 million.
Correct.
Which is the Hyder, the non-motorized.
Oh, sorry, yes,
Yep.
right.
So we did that as part of that, where we talked about move out the projects discussed earlier.
Okay, so that was in the motion.
Yes, I have that written down. I don't know if you do or not. If not, then we can do another motion, just to be clear.
I don't recall it being part of the motion, but,
Okay,
I might have-
let's do another amendment just in case.
so I'll entertain it. And this was where we talked about, and Aaron listed projects 57, 58, 59. And a fair number that were getting moved. So that's one that we probably don't need to list them all again right now, but
We could just say it's discussed earlier. I discussed, as I pointed out earlier, and then Rhiannon pointed out the long-term ones, which are still.
moving the 30.8 million from short to long-term and long-term to lesser.
Programmed, yeah.
This is another.
So move as discussed earlier.
Moved by member Weiss, do we have a second? Second by member Boland. Do we have any any discussion on that? Okay, any objections to making that amendment? Hearing none, that amendment is it's incorporated into the motion, maybe for the second time, but maybe not.
Sure, it's got.
Yeah.
It's good. We double,
Make
make sure
sure
we're
it
good.
Okay, are there any other amendments? Even though we didn't do like each project individually, we might have still set a record on number.
Yes, we definitely did do set a number. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I have 9 amendments. Somewhere around there.
Okay.
So that is a record.
One more amendment, come on.
Okay, 10. Okay.
Funny. Okay, are there any other amendments? Okay, hearing none, then we have the motion as amended before us. Are there any objections to approving the motion as amended? Okay, hearing none, that motion is approved. Staff will have a busy day trying to get all those incorporated in. Well, committee, thank you.
Well, all we're gonna do is just put it in the memo. We don't actually make any of the changes, so we gotta get it done here in 2 hours.
Okay. Sounds good. So we're now move on to action item 5C, L and I Street Rehabilitation Project.
Presentation by the project team. I believe you guys have it on your iPads if you're interested, but it'll also be on the screen. Go.
Sounds good. We'll turn it over to the project team.
Oh, real quick before you go, just remember that this was originally an AMATS pavement preservation project that the policy can move into a larger scale. You know, you guys will talk about it later, and I don't want to take too much time. So just keep that in mind that you have seen this before, some of this information before, but project team is presenting on it because they actually have direction. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Joe Taylor. I'm from Mount Vernon Associates. I'm a contract manager for this project, this really former pavement preservation project we'll talk about. The department's project manager, Ryan Harris, and actually the project manager, Scott Willis, are both here with me. I'm gonna go through these really quick because this, as Aaron said, you guys have seen all these slides. Everybody knows we had 2 separate pavement preservation projects. A year ago, we provided an update on those. There's the limits. Next slide. Existing conditions, we talked about that last year. There was a reason that there was a pavement preservation project. The roads are deteriorating, and we had documented some ruts and some roughness and things of that nature. Here's pictures on L Street. The next slide is I Street. Similar ruts, rutting. The next slide we presented last year, we were talking about a number of efficiencies that we had identified in our work. Pavement preservation proper, but we had also done a pretty comprehensive inventory on curb ramps, failed a bunch of them. There was 108 curb ramps that we had inventoried, and some ADA non-compliant deficiencies that we presented on. So in our next slide, when we updated this group previously, we had said, hey, here's these 2 projects. We're at about 75% design plans and AM level on a pavement preservation proper project. But as we were identifying these deficiencies and working on it with the state and ourselves and the city, we sort of started identifying things that were outside of the pavement preservation, but were pretty easy to do on the project. Some things that were a little bit more of a stretch. So we were asked last year to come before you and develop a menu of alternatives. We had 3. Here was the basic improvement, and then the next slide we showed was sort of what we called the basic improvement plus a little bit, and that was focused on ADA upgrades. We were working on driveways, sidewalks, widening sidewalks, audible push buttons, sort of pretty easy additions to the pavement preservation. We'd costed that. The next option showed was another variant of that where we did pavement preservation plus ADA upgrades. But this one worked on some signals, some cameras, radar detection, flashing yellow arrow, sort of improvements that the city and state both thought were desirable. We costed that. And then we got to option 4, which is kind of the big part of our presentation last year, was, hey, we also have this option that is a reallocation of the right of way, a repurposing of the space, essentially a lane reduction or a lane reallocation. And we had worked through some preliminary design on that, presented it, costed it. About that time, the project team sort of realized, hey, there's a corridor study, Minnesota Drive corridor study that's being undertaken by the department, and they're working on both I and L as well. So this project paused, essentially has been pencils down for about a year as that planning process worked its way through to see what came out of that. And so next slide, just a quick section of what that option 4 was, repurposed, use of the right of way. And that's fine. The next slide is really the purpose of our meeting today. So the draft of the plan for the corridor plan has been provided to the department, and they've shared that with us. So this is really a beautiful graphic that project team did that sort of summarizes what they've drafted for recommendations in I and L. And you can go through it and read sort of the specific words. There's some recommended stuff. There is things to consider, but essentially here on I Street, the recommendation is to go with that option for sort of repurposing of the right of way, and then add a number of other amenities that our next slide actually shows that we had developed pretty closely as part of our menu work. So not a huge surprise that the department and the city were working on the corridor plan, guiding the design team on the development of the menu. The plan gets drafted and it says pretty much what menu 4 looked like. I think everybody expected that. I don't think we presented this design last year. We had snippets that showed the costing and the line work behind it, but we have developed this option for lane reallocation to a pretty detailed level. This is I Street. The next slide. So this next slide is really what we've done is we've looked at our menu 4 design work that was done on pavement preservation. We've gone through the draft of the corridor plan and we've identified On the left, you can see recommended alternative, right-of-way lane reallocation, design considerations. Those are coming from the corridor plan. Then we're highlighting the element, and then we have check boxes where option 4 meets plan. And essentially it meets the plan everywhere with a few caveats that we're showing in green and blue there. There's a little bit of additional studies needed to implement a few of the RFBs, rectangular rapid flashing beacons, or other amenities. And then at the bottom, we have this additional considerations. So we had these baked into the menu. They're pretty detailed, honestly, and our read of the plan didn't have those elements, but we did want to highlight those. A lot of it's storm drain. We're doing that right now. You'll see guys out. We're actually cleaning and re-inspecting the storm drain this week. We're working on that. So we've got kind of 3 little edits at the bottom that were in the menu that aren't in the plan. Next slide is essentially a restatement of what I just presented, but for L Street, that recommendation as well was a right-of-way reallocation. This graphic shows what that plan shows on our next slide. This is the design that we prepared about a year ago to back up our menu. And then on our next slide, same thing, compare and contrast and highlight what's in the plan versus what was in the design work that got us to our menu with a few little edits here. So there's a couple little studies that would need to be done to implement a few of those things. But for the most part, they're kind of one square edits at the bottom there, you can see on the additional considerations. So the big ask, or the purpose of why we're here today, I guess, is to show this schedule. And then, kind of talk about next steps. So where we are right now on the pavement preservation project is we turned in 75% maybe about a year ago. And then those weren't circulated. Those have been paused and stopped because everybody knew this work was coming. But got that to about 75%, getting close to final surveying. We're doing a little bit of more inspection and cleaning up some culverts and some trenchless work there. That's about 75. The menu option 4 slides that I just presented are laid out in pretty good detail. I mean, about the 25% design level is 25 to 30 is kind of how we got to that cost estimate. So if you take that 25-30% design, you put it on top of the pavement preservation work, which includes all the survey, all the drainage work, that design, we're probably about halfway there. Project's probably about halfway there with implementing I and L in final design. So if we picked up tools today and started pivoting towards that project, this slide demonstrates that we feel we could get to maybe plans in hand on that project by the end of the year. And then we are going to have some right-of-way issues. We found a few curb ramps maybe on one side of the right-of-way line and maybe some improvements on the other that have to be sorted out, and we got to work through that. That has a time component. But if we were picking up that piece after plans in hand in early 27, we could have a construction project in 28. We don't have permission to move that way. And so I think our big ask here is can we pick up tools and pivot that way, or should we continue to pause, or where are we going with the project? Any additions?
No, great. Yeah, we're really needing concurrence from you and from the policy committee on being able to move forward with the newly named TIP project, the new scope that we're showing in the TIP, as it's aligning with what we're seeing in the draft corridor plan, which we should be seeing a final corridor plan. I don't want to speak for the team working on that, but I believe it was next month or so. But again, at this point, we have been told to pause by the policy committee, and so we're just looking for concurrence to be able to move forward again, as we've demonstrated that our project, many options, aligns with what the corridor plan is showing also. So we're just wanting that concurrence from you guys in the policy committee.
Okay, thanks for the presentation. Are there any questions or comments from the? Are you done with your presentation? You have?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments from the? Go ahead, member.
Yeah, thanks. These look great. Thanks for providing I was just wondering on the thing about the right-of-way impacts, would it be the kind of thing where you take a little bit, or would it be, at least from what you can tell so far? I'm assuming the right-of-way impacts mean taking some of the private property. Is there anything actually knocking down a building or anything like that, or?
The one that jumps out to my mind actually is the other way, where there might be some curb ramps on the wrong side of the line that got to get moved.
Oh, really?
And so it's sort of the reverse encroachment, if you will, that we have to pick through. If you were to repurpose that right away and you reuse that space, I mean, trying to hold a curb line has been one of the big things, and just pull one lane in. And that makes everything much faster and easier to accomplish. If you are moving a lane though, you've got some room in the design to work through that stuff.
Other questions or comments? Go ahead, Member Foss.
I'd like to know more about the on-street parking, what you've heard from the corridor study, you know, especially like what is the OSNHP level of the roadway, and I don't know, like, if, for example, is the intent to have driveway access maintained on this roadway and available parking for streets, or do they, many of the properties already take access from a different side street or a different street? I was a little surprised to see it. But if that's what the community wants, I'd like to just know more about that.
The honest answer to that is it's a bit of an enigma. The report is really clear in that it puts that in a bucket that it says design consideration. It says consider this. It doesn't make a strong statement about it. It's exactly what we did in the menus. We said, here's an option that can have on-street parking, but you don't have to. So I don't think anybody has like put pencil to paper and made a strong statement about that. It's just been identified that this has to be worked through in design.
Okay, so it's
So I don't have like
not firmed up
yeah,
just because I see it as an option here.
yeah, no, it said, the study says this should be considered in design. And I think the menu 4 included it because it was the most expensive option, if you will. So we were trying to be conservative with the costing, but no one's committed to the position on that. Driveways, the intent would be everywhere that a driveway needs to be moved to a side street. With a project like this, you would do that, similar to how we're managing access everywhere else.
So there will be a design process where there'll be a chance to look at and make decisions on-street parking.
Yeah, if the project pivots to implementing that corridor plan, it's going to start a new phase of design. So right now, the design has been conceptually what we did to kind of cost this at like the 25% level, plus pavement preservation in great detail. And so we have better detail for pavement preservation than driveway relocation or answers like that. So those would have to catch up. That's what we would hope to catch up by the end of the year.
And some of the bike facilities and what those might look like. There's still opportunity through this design effort to look at what options are. This is just starting to move forward into that, or is that kind of, because it looks like it provides 2 options. It says shared lane or protected bike lane.
Yeah, so that's coming out of the corridor plan. Thank you for going back to that. We had some typicals in there. We just took a position. I think it was like 10 feet behind the curve. I can't. But we just had to pick something to get a cost in there, but there's been no commitment to what that might look like. Yeah, so to answer your question, 100% opportunity to pick that up. I'll be sort of picking up tools on the design.
Sounds good. Got a bunch of thoughts, and I can save those for when we have design discussion. Just knowing it's in a downtown central business, you can't bike on the sidewalk, but seeing how Minneapolis kind of somehow some of the things they did, got thoughts, but I won't go there right now. So that'll be good to have at that later point. Other questions or comments? Go ahead.
I'm sorry, it was road classification. I just couldn't think of the word at the moment. Is there any intent on reclassifying the road segments?
That connects the official streets and highways.
Yeah, that's, I was like, I just couldn't think of the word at the moment.
I gotta tap out and admit, I don't know the
Okay.
answer to that one.
I don't know the answer to that one either.
I don't think
That usually comes kind of through you guys too.
if this was reclassified though, that wouldn't throw this right away reallocation out, for example. It would still fall under what we could handle for a couplet in a lower classification road. Sorry. Man, that one.
And then the timing, just to reconfirm, in about a month, you're expecting to have a final
That's, I
draft?
believe that's what I've heard. And if someone online from that planning team, they can correct me during public comment, but I believe it was this summer. We're expecting to have the final corridor plan, yeah.
I think with the progress of the corridor plan coming along and getting good engagement with from stakeholders and public and all functional departments to weigh in on what that's looking like, it seems like a good point to start unpausing and get moving. Especially if you have a target for delivery.
I would add to that, that our schedule is 2 years. On the slide that we showed, it was 2 years from plans in hand at the end of this year, right? So that puts you deep into 2028. So there's a little window for that construction year. And then we're into the next construction year.
Looks like Wanley has her hand up to respond to the help with the presentation or answer questions.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thank you, Brad. Oh, there's a bit of an echo, but it's Wanley with R&M. We are supporting the Department of Transportation on the Minnesota and INL Street Corridor Plan. We've had that plan out for public comment for 45 days since April 14th. We just closed the public comment period on May 29th, and we received roughly 30 public comments, including resolutions from the different community councils. But Joe is right. We are wrapping up the final comments responses, and we should have the final plan by the end of June for the department to take through the internal DOT approval process. And then I do want to answer Melinda's question about the on-street parking. There is currently existing on-street parking in the downtown INL Street sections. We are not recommending removing that on-street parking, but that we are recommending the design team continue to consider the on-street parking as the lane reallocation design moves forward.
I think it's metered, right?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you, Ann.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Can I just ask, why does it, I assume there's not many right away acquisition, but so why does it take a year, I guess, for right away?
Great question. I'll try to answer this the way I always hear it answered. It is a process that's not a function of the number of impacts or, if 30 impacts or 1 impact, take this process that has a timeline associated with it is the way it's always explained to me. I'll also say that 24 months that always gets used as an estimator in the schedule, that's not always used, but it's fairly safe. It's not going to be 6 or 8 probably.
I can add some more detail to that too. I mean, in that process, we've got a plating effort that has to get approved to specify the boundaries of any acquisitions that we have there. We've got appraisals that we have to contract out. We also have a review requirement. So those are 2 contracted actions that we have. We get the appraisal, and then we have that vetted by another licensed appraisal. It's not a typical appraisal that we go through either. It's one that's has to support any actions that could pursue down an eminent domain. So it's a more involved appraisal than a typical home. Most folks would be more familiar with. And then it's getting offers out, it's negotiating, it's all that that goes into purchasing something that somebody wasn't actively trying to sell.
Okay, other questions or comments? Any? Okay. We'll take some comments from the public. Any member of the public like to have a comment on this item? Okay, see none online or in the room. What is the will of the committee?
I think so, but
This isn't quite a so moved item.
So this item is to, the ask is to recommend to the policy committee to direct the project team to move forward the project based on the current tip description and include input from the Minnesota IL corridor plan.
I doubt it. So move now. Now to, yeah, move to recommend to the policy committee the project move forward based on the current tip description and input from the draft Minnesota INL corridor. It's pretty much exactly what Aaron just said, I think.
Yep. Moved by member Boland. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by member White. Any discussion or amendments? Are there any opposed to the motion? Okay, hearing none, that motion is approved. Thank you for coming and presenting, and it'll now be lost. Okay. The next item on our agenda is we're now moving to the discretionary grant application letter, item 5B.
Yes, before you is a request for a letter. Department of Transportation is looking at seeking an AOP, which is Aquatic Organism Passage grant. I love the acronyms. Just so you know, we have supported past efforts by DOT and the Native Village of Eklutna, for an AOP grant that they wanted at the time. So this is not the first time we've seen something come through. This is to work on culverts for the Seward Highway Rabbit Creek area. So I think there's 3 culverts that need to be replaced. And I believe, as it was explained by the railroad, they had culverts as well that were replaced by a bridge instead of culverts. So now DOT is working on trying to get the culverts replaced under the highway. So this letter is before you today. Staff reviewed it, recommends support of this to the policy committee. And of course, DOT can fill in anything I've got. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Are there any questions or comments from the committee?
Just apologize that it came in before the agenda went out. We had 45 days to get our application and everything submitted. So I figured if we waited till we could run this through the normal process, we'd already have to submit it. So anyway.
Yeah.
These discretionary grants are driving me crazy.
Yep. Well, thanks for getting it in, being able to have it on the agenda, right? Other questions or comments?
I'll just say PM&E is also actively seeking AOP grant opportunities. So we've been collaborating with Mark and Ben. So glad to see this one moving forward as far as seeking additional funds for projects.
Even in the same watershed.
Yeah, right. Buffalo.
It'll work. It'll work.
Any other questions or comments? Are there any comments from the public?
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Ken Coley's Public Works Director, Melinda, help me, or Ms. Kohlhaas, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that Public Works Department signed a letter of support for this grant as well, right? So.
Okay, you can't appreciate it. Other comments from the public? Okay, seeing none, what is the will of the committee?
I move to recommend to the, what, do we have to do anything? We don't have to recommend.
Recommend.
Oh, do I have to recommend to the policy committee?
Yeah.
Supporting signature of this letter from AMATS.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, moved by member Kohlhaas, seconded by member Rudolph, to speed out member Alini. Are there any discussion or amendments? Okay, hearing none, are there any opposed to approving this motion? Hearing none, the motion is approved. And that finishes up our action items. Now we're on to our information items. We have item 6A, roadmap for AMATS.
Yes, so as you know, this is a kind of a standing item because there's been some requests by the chair of the policy committee to have this on there. As you see that there is a letter that was provided to the policy committee. I also provided it to the TAC, and it was posted on our agenda with some concerns regarding the AMATS boundary and some items that need to still be reviewed and decided upon by AMATS on how to move forward. So it's here before you for information. At this time, there's no action. It's just if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, it's before you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. Are there questions or comments from the committee? Go ahead, Member White.
So I think what you have here is the department's issues with the boundary that they'd like to discuss further. And so our intent here is to try and capture any additional feedback, any comments, concerns from you all that you may have. This will go to policy next week. We'll get their opinion on it, but I believe the intent is to bring this back for an action item at a future meeting. So I think the intent is to try and bring this back in July as an action item so that we can hash through a revised version of this based on comments and feedback from everybody. And we've got maps and drawings and all of that kind of stuff that we could go through as well at that time. But we're trying to coalesce everything right now and put together sort of a discussion point for everyone.
Okay, go ahead, Member McIntosh.
This is always kind of confused me. Could someone just explain like what the problem is here and what, especially for the public too, just so like what is the deal with this? Like, what is the issue and what are the sort of two sides of this problem, I guess? In like explain like I'm 5 years old, basically.
So after every census, the Census Bureau categorizes an urbanized area. MPOs are then required to go back in and update their boundary based on the new urbanized parameters. So there's always an update to the boundary. We've gone through, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Aaron, but in 2024, after we got the Census Bureau data, we went in and revised the current boundary. And it's been discussed and debated and brought back and forth, I think, 2 or 3 times to this committee and policy to get approval. So once the boundary is approved by policy, then the governor's office will then concur, approve, and move it on to federal highways for formal approval. And so it's a joint effort between the governor and the MPO to get an approved boundary in place. And we've got till December 31st to get this boundary approved. And so there's been a lot of back and forth from the governor's office and everywhere of what exactly we want to see in the boundary. And so this boundary that we did, we smoothed out, we roughed out some of the zigzags and ins and outs. And then there's been some concern with some encroachment into the state park. And so that's been some of the concern and discussion that we've had internally with Department of Law, our Department of Law, and Commissioner's Office is just some of those areas that we tried to smooth some things out. We've got roads that zigzag back and forth in and out of the boundary. And so the intent was to try and smooth it out so that, and I'll just throw Highland Road in Eagle River as one example where the road kind of went, the road was there, but the boundary went in and out. So sometimes some portions of it were in the boundary, some of it wasn't. So we tried to smooth that out. And so the department started to look at some of the GIS and and so there's just a few little minor tweaks here and there. And also we wanted to have a conversation with DNR Parks about the boundary and everything. So I think the letter tried to outline exactly what some of the concerns were coming from the commissioner's office.
So
That's kind of where we're at now is we have a boundary that's gone through, it's been approved by policy, but it has not been blessed by the governor.
And so when you say that we tried to smooth it out, is that the process in 2024 that went through AMATS that was in the boundary that was presented to the governor was trying to smooth this out?
Yep.
And now as DOT is looking at it.
It was pretty much we pretty much, when we did the boundary, this current boundary, was to smooth out some of that roughness. We didn't add, there wasn't a big additional grabs for anything for the boundary that I can think of.
No, it was pretty minor. And when we talk about smoothing, we actually worked with DOT to smooth out the boundary. So DOT was involved in the development of this boundary. We also had it reviewed by FHWA, who provided us some errors that we needed to correct. We corrected it. So that's why it went through and was eventually approved by the policy committee, because we had done our requirements for coordination to work with everybody.
So there's an approved boundary from the policy,
Yes,
hasn't been kind of
ordered on.
confirmed by the governor yet.
Correct.
So it's in this limbo and needs to get through the approval. And DOT has some additional concerns of that state of the boundary and is looking at some additional changes. Go ahead.
So just to clarify, so this is a letter about a boundary that the policy committee already looked at and already voted to approve. So is there an action to be changed or?
This is an informational item only right now.
We're just providing the information today, but we do intend to bring back an action item at a future date. Because we have to get a boundary, we have to get the boundary approved, and we have to find a way to get it through the governor's office. So
We as the TAC or the policy committee or DOT or?
DOT and working in collaboration with the MPO, we've got to find a way to get it off high center. So we're not voting on anything today, but it's just sharing information. So if there's any feedback that you have, feel free to shoot it to me.
Yeah, sounds good. Are there other questions or comments from the committee? Anything from staff that we need to be thinking of or aware of on this?
Yeah. So we didn't go into great detail reviewing this, but this is the same stuff we've been hearing for over a year now. So nothing new. A little concerned with some of the language used in here. It seems to contradict itself between what it talks about. It talks about the importance of having coordination with the MPO, but then it says certain portions shouldn't be in the MPO boundary because it would require more coordination, most notably with DNR parks. We still have yet to actually hear from DNR or parks directly what their concerns are with our boundary. We have nothing in writing. There has been no meeting with AMATS itself. Well, it appears that others have met with DNR. They do not represent AMATS. AMATS is the policy committee or the TAC or staff. So it'd be nice if we had a meeting with DNR to hear what their concerns were. We have a weird statement in here about avoid NHS interstate mileage solely on the basis of corridor significance. That's why a corridor would be included in our boundary, is because it's a significant corridor, like the Glen Highway and the Seward Highway. The only connections in and out of our boundary. They are the most important corridor for us to be considering in our planning process. So it's a little strange what some of the language is in here. And it says that it should be limited to what's going to be urbanized within the next 20 years. That is not a federal requirement. That is the minimum. We can go above and beyond that if there's justification for it. So, yeah, it's a lot really, but nothing more than what we've already heard.
All of these sections of the highways are within the municipal boundaries.
Right. They're within the municipality of Anchorage boundary. We're not recommending our boundaries and MPO go above and beyond. I'll be honest with you. When you look at the boundary from AMATS, it hasn't changed much since we were incorporated in 1976. Even when you go back to like the 2002 boundary that we did, it's basically the same. The small amount that we did with this was to smooth it out to make things a little bit more easy to understand. So for example, the Glen Highway, half of it was in our boundary, half wasn't because of a GIS layer error.
And by half, you mean like the northbound was and southbound wasn't, sort of?
Yes. So like the west side was in, the east side was out. And so it was like, well, should be all the way in. So we were kind of cleaning that up. Or the Highland interchange, 3 of the 4 quadrants were in, the southeast quadrant was out. So it was like, well, maybe we should include it all the way in. So, yeah, I think more information would be nice about the concerns with DNR, and then other stuff would be helpful.
I guess I still don't, I don't think I could explain this to a 5-year-old, so, but I also still don't live it. I guess but going to the comment that we're high centered. So say we're high centered, I guess, who's driving the vehicle then? Like, who got us high centered and who's in the driver's seat to get us high centered out of this? If you have a comment or staff has a comment about that. Sounds to me like the AMATs approved the boundary, policy committee approved the boundary. So I guess if there's any, who's in the driver's seat and can we just keep driving her? Get us on high centered, it sounds like.
I think what we need to do is find a solution to get commissioner comfortable to get it to the governor, to get governor's approval.
So, okay.
I think at the end of the day, you got a memo here that until I see it actually on a map where we can say this is the line that needs to move from here to here, it's tough to do. You know, what we need to do to evaluate the proposed changes. So getting that on as an action item so we can walk through in detail what proposed changes are desired. I mean, that's the next step, and get this off of a perpetual agenda item and get it behind us.
Have more definitive discussion and this instead of trying to wonder.
I actually have something on that. The challenge you're gonna reach is you may not have enough time in a regular meeting because we have other things going on. So just kind of keep that in mind. If you want it as an action item at the next meeting, we have other things we have to bring in that get approval. And as you can see, our meetings typically go to the nth minute. So my recommendation would be maybe a work session in as soon as we can to sit down with everybody and be like, what are the changes we are looking at here? What are those from DOT and what it would look like for our overall boundary? Because then that it gives you guys the opportunity to ask questions. And if there's more information you need, that can help you. I'd hate for it to come in July, not have enough time to actually ask your questions to get that kind of engagement, and then not get anything approved, and then have to come back and like just keep coming back through that. So I'd recommend a work session. We can set that up as soon as possible if there is interest. And just as a reminder, we have 3 minutes left of the meeting.
Maybe that's a conversation for the policy committee.
Yep.
We can approve a part of a boundary and do amendments, amend in portions.
Maybe, I don't know.
If we get at least 10, we can like.
Yeah, we can do. That's good.
Okay, well, I entertain a motion to extend the meeting by 5 minutes if we want to cover the last item on here, or are we pretty good? We can just.
I can do it in 30 seconds.
Okay, I guess we'll move on then to item 6B, AMAT's quarterly project update.
Okay, quarterly project update is before you. This is through March 31st of 2026. So realize it is not to the current second, but it is based on quarterly updates. Mark Eisman has been gracious enough to take over, helping to update this while James is off saving the world. And so we're very happy to have the assistance. Thank you, Mark. So it's here before you so you can see where the project statuses are. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Aaron. We have 1 more minute. Are there any members of the public that would like to comment on information items? Okay, seeing none, we'll then move on to, let's see, I mean, we got less than a minute, literally. Are there any members of the committee that have an urgent comment you would like to make?
Just thank Mark for his time putting together the obligation report.
Thanks, Mark. Other comments? Okay, any members of the public who would like to comment on general items? Okay, hearing none, we are now on adjournment. Call this meeting adjourned. 2:59.
Spare.
A record number of amendments, and we finished on time.